Southampton 1, Manchester City 4. Janusz Michallik, the juggernaut, rolls on, still trailing Arsenal though. But after a patient opening 35 minutes or so, City found their groove and eventually running out 4-1 winners. What was the biggest takeaway you got from this game from a City perspective?
I just think that they're getting their groove. Watch out, Arsenal. Obviously, there's still a gap, and even tomorrow. I mean, obviously an important game for Arsenal. But even if they were to lose, there's still a gap. So, but if I look at Manchester City, I mean, we've been talking so much about their inconsistent play throughout this season, right? Because they're known for their famous runs of 10, 11, 12, 13. The biggest one was 4, I think, in the Premier League, and today they've bypassed that. 5 straight wins in the Premier League. I think 8 straight wins in all competitions as well. And that's something that I think if you're an Arsenal fan, something that always comes to mind, that if City go on that run, they may be in trouble. Time will tell because it's in Arsenal's hands. But you look at that and, you look at the fact 4 today against Southampton, 4 against Liverpool, 6 goals, obviously it's not a Premier League, but against Burnley. And this is a Burnley team that's in the Premier League now, the fastest to get there, right, so far. So that's incredible. 7 against Leipzig. This is the sort of Manchester City that I think the neutrals have been waiting to see, because we haven't seen all season that consistency in winning and scoring and playing well as well.
Yes and no, because for the first 30, 35, maybe 40 minutes, loads of the ball, but it was stagnant possession. It was creating 1 or 2 chances. So what changed for City? Because they looked really comfortable, apart from one mistake by De Bruyne, and it let in Southampton for a one-on-one, but Ake did well, and then there was a heavy touch. So what changed? Was it simply an increase in the tempo? Because City in the end absolutely cruised it, but they didn't play as well in the first 40 minutes or so as they did for the rest of the game.
Well, yes and no to you as well, because I mean it seems like a preparation for what's to come. Sometimes the game doesn't develop the way you want right away, although it should have, right? Because I think in the 5th minute, Jack Grealish had a chance. We'll talk about him because he scored again. But again, it was on the rebound that he scored. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. He's getting better and better. But I think we all know that he should be better in front of goal. And I'm not talking that he's got to score 15, 20 goals, but I think the chances he gets, he's got to be a little bit cleaner. In that 5th minute when Gundogan played him wide, right? I mean, it's a similar situation to what he scored, where he scored his goal from. He's got to be putting those away. If he does, then I think the game's easier right away. I think it was Erling Haaland. Remember his header from 3 yards out? He's got to put that away. And all of a sudden, we're not talking about that. But sometimes the game takes time to prepare. If it doesn't work your way, you don't panic. You keep the ball. You don't lose composure. And that's something that City did. But, here we are getting to Haaland. I mean, again, outstanding. 30 goals in the Premier League, 44 goals on the season. But if you watch that first half, I mean, he's not comfortable in combination play. He just isn't. A couple of times he dropped back, and you could tell that he's almost like nervous on the ball to combine to make 2 or 3 passes. When he's on the pitch, Saints play narrow because you have to play him. The moment he left the pitch, you could see everything opened up a little bit. It went wider. That's just the way it is. I think it's not a knock on him, as I've said it. He's their plan B, and maybe he is the answer for Manchester City to do well in all competitions, because now you have a different look with him and without him.
There was an element of rope-a-dope, I thought, in that first half, because you knew that City were probably going to win the game, and it's just they had their opponents at arm's length, toying with them. And then a delivery in for the quickest player to reach 100 assists in the Premier League, Kevin De Bruyne. And it's like some sort of telepathic understanding. He puts it exactly where Haaland wants. Haaland runs exactly where he needs to. And there's the opening goal after, as you mentioned, the header before that went wide. I think it's unfair right now because we've not prepped as to kind of think who's the best kind of combo as far as delivering in and scoring goals are concerned. But what do you think it is that makes De Bruyne and Haaland such a special partnership?
Well, as I've said, I mean, sometimes they do it too much. And, the time when I mentioned Haaland, that sometimes they play better without him, like in the game against Liverpool, because I think, it's natural for the likes of De Bruyne in particular to look for him, right? Because, I mean, because of his size and athleticism, I mean, you put that ball up in the air, and you can't compete with that. As I've mentioned, the chance that he's missed, Ward-Prowse was there, and I don't know if it was because he was there, his presence, that he missed it. But it's impossible, just as you saw on the goal. So that's the bonus, and sometimes that could be a negative because you can see that. So you know that he's going to look for Erling Haaland in front of goal. But I think the biggest story in all of it, and I'm glad that you've mentioned, is, we can talk about Erling Haaland, we can talk about Jack Grealish, but for me is De Bruyne in form now, finally. I mean, he's that little magician right now. He's almost at his best, and Pep Guardiola has challenged him through the season. He hasn't been. You've mentioned the number of assists he's had, but if you look at the last two games, against Liverpool in particular, and even in this game, this is the Kevin De Bruyne that gives you a chance to win the Premier League again, and it gives you a chance to win the Champions League. This is De Bruyne almost at his best. And today, I thought he was outstanding, even though I think he gave away give away possession maybe 16, 17 times, which is too much for him. But in between all of that, the way he threads the ball to Jack Grealish to square it for I think it was maybe the third goal, was absolutely outstanding. The assist to Haaland, the Bernardo Silva sitter that he's missed. I mean, this story to me, if I really had to get into the weeds of it all, is Kevin De Bruyne. If Kevin De Bruyne is at his best, then watch out, everybody.
Let's put Jack Grealish in the focus for just a second, because 8 assists and 4 goals since the World Cup. He's absolutely flying right now. But just like I mentioned, Manchester City required patience in the first half. City fans have required patience with Jack Grealish, and written off by many as a 100 million dud after a first season. Pep knows what he's doing. He's done it with wingers before, and once he gets them into form, watch out. What's been the biggest change for Jack Grealish that saw him where he struggled to make too much of an impact last season to now probably being one of Pep's first names on his team sheet?
Yeah, without trying to sound too smart, I think it's just learning the system. I mean, it's an intricate system. It's not easy. The combination play, when to show, when to give, how many touches you take on the ball. I think that was something that he struggled with because, that system, with or without Haaland, it's not easy to get behind, right? I mean, you look at the players that you have in behind, Kevin De Bruyne and Ilkay Gundogan, absolutely incredible. Add to that Bernardo Silva when he plays in the midfield or wide. These guys run the ball. They thrive when they play the combination play, the 1, 2, 3 touch, with the movement with and without the ball. It's not easy to do that. That's why Manchester City sometimes are unplayable and so great to watch when they're at their best. And we saw that in particular in the game against Liverpool. So I have to imagine that it's that, without knowing, but in his head, he was used to being the main player at Aston Villa, where he always got the ball, when he was always on the end of goals or, creating the goals. And all of a sudden you come from that system into Manchester City when you have 5 or 6 guys like that are kind of looking at you and saying, listen, unless you get it done, give it to us. If you don't know what to do with it, give it to us. So I think I would have to imagine that just learning that and understanding what Pep wants from players in that system is probably the hardest part. And maybe he just got the confidence, finally clicked for him, and we're seeing the results of that.
It's Arsenal's title to lose because it's in their own hands. However, as we record this just after City has beaten Southampton by 4-1, Arsenal have to go to Liverpool. Arsenal also have to go to the Etihad. Now, the Liverpool game is this weekend. Some people are saying if they win that, that's pretty much the title wrapped up. Not sure about that. If they don't get maximum points, City already breathing down their necks. So the question is, albeit Arsenal are favourites right now, but the way City are playing and the fact that they've done this before, they've been over this ground before, they've got those championship medals, it's all new for Arsenal. You cannot rule City out. So even although Arsenal have that lead, do you think there are people who would rather be in the City camp right now playing catch-up despite being behind, but having that experience of winning the Premier League than in the Arsenal camp? Most would be in the Arsenal camp, I get that. But do you think there are some that would rather be where City are right now, knowing they know how to do it?
I don't know where you're going with that. No.
I know. I was just meandering and going round and round. You want to be Arsenal.
I want to be 5 points ahead at this stage.
Of course. City aren't out of it. There you go. Let's take 60 seconds and wrap it into 5 seconds. City aren't out of this, no matter what happens with Arsenal and Liverpool.
Experience counts for a lot. I mean, look, it's still that there's a reason, on a Premier League Express shows on Mondays, I'm being challenged every week, who's going to win finally, and being accused of sitting on the fence. But I don't sit on the fence. I would love to say one way or the other, but I just have too much.
Who's going to win? Who's going to win?
No, I'm not giving it to anybody, and I'll tell you what, because there shouldn't be a reason for me to give it to anybody because of what you just said. I mean, Manchester City have got that experience. They're known to go on the run, and I've mentioned 8 in all competitions right now, 5 in the Premier League, and if they go on the run to the end, it's going to be very difficult because look, I mean, City have I'm going to skip that little game against Bayern Munich, which, by the way, if they somehow get through that, imagine the confidence they're going to get from that. But they have Leicester City at home, so you'd have to think that they're going to win that game, no matter who's in charge of that game. And as you've said, Arsenal got Liverpool and West Ham away. That's never going to be easy, I suppose. But I think this is all going to get decided in that game at the Etihad. But then Arsenal have to have Chelsea at home and Newcastle away. Those 3 games are gonna decide, in my opinion, if Arsenal take that, because it's in their hands. They can take it, but that spell, City, Chelsea, and Newcastle is going to tell us everything. Because I think City aren't going to lose a game for the rest of the season. I don't think. Dropping points, a draw could be telling. Arsenal certainly with 5 points, I take that anytime. But I'm not ready to give it to Arsenal just yet because we just seen Manchester City at their best against City and against Liverpool and against Southampton.
You and I have worked together long enough to know that we have colleagues, Shaka Hislop in particular, who gives 3 or 4 different answers throughout the season and then goes back and says, "See, I told you so." But
I think I'm guilty of that from time to time, but not this season. I've been very and by the way, this is great. You want to be on the fence. You know why? Because it means we have a proper race, and we do. So it's Premier League's been tremendous, everywhere, not just at the top, the Champions League in the middle. Look at the relegation battle, which is incredible, and it's going to go until the end between, who knows, 6, 7, 8, or 9 teams. And that's the beauty of it. That's why sometimes sitting on the fence is a good thing, because it means it's a great season.
It is indeed. Too hard to call, both at the top and at the bottom of the table. 2 more for Haaland. And 3 more points for Manchester City, who march on with a 4-1 win at Southampton.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.